Hi, happy Friday. And we're here today to learn how to leverage LinkedIn for your next job or your next promotion. You ready? Okay. So tell me if this is you. You've been laid off or you feel it coming and you're up at night with layoff worries. If this is you, drop me a layoff in the DMs or in the comments, whichever works for you. No judgment. Okay. What about this? I'm ready for my next job. I'm ready for my next step in my career, my next promotion. And I really am tired of I've outgrown my current job. If that's you, give me an outgrown. And then last but not least, I hate my job. Give me a hate. Don't hate me, but drop me a hate in the DMs or the comments. So I know which one of those three you are. So we've got the layoff worries, or I'm already unemployed. I've been laid off already. So the layoff stuff, we've got the I've outgrown my job. I'm ready for my next promotion. And then we've got the I hate my job crowd. So all of you, all y'all, as they say in Tennessee, can benefit from what we're going to talk about today. Okay. So first of all, let's deal with the whole topic of if I'm employed, can I make changes in my LinkedIn profile? So let's just deal with that elephant in the room. So the reality is that lesson learned next time. What you're going to do when you get your next job is you're going to make it a practice to be regularly updating your accomplishments in your new role in the experience section on your LinkedIn profile. You're going to do that in part so that it's just normal business. And if by some odd off chance you actually have a colleague or a boss who has enough time to go spying around on your LinkedIn profile and they notice things changing, they'll know that that's just the way you always are. So when you conduct a job search, it's not a red flag. Now, the other thing is that you can control whether notifications are sent out when you make changes. The default typically on LinkedIn profiles, I've yet to see one in years that isn't set to do not notify my connections when I make changes to my profile. So before you make any changes, you definitely want to make sure that that privacy setting is set accurately. Now, if you are not responsible for marketing for your company or representing your company in some kind of sales way, the chances that anyone is going to have an opinion about anything on your profile are pretty low. I did once in 19 years of career coaching, have somebody who was in public relations and communications who had a boss who did check out people's profiles. And then both he and my client were laid off, and that was the end of that. So that's 1 in 19 years. So that's that. I actually am talking with one of my executive coaching clients, and we are planning a CEO level search. And we were looking at a lot of CEOs in his space and their profiles, and they're not findable based on what they're doing. They have very little going on in their profiles. And at first he was thinking, oh, well, maybe that's how I need to show up. And so I'll take down everything Wendy has me do when I get my job. And I said, well, no, because we're branding you as a CEO for a certain kind of company. And what happens when you want your next job? You're the CEO. People are going to notice. So you're going to keep this stuff up and you're going to maintain your brand. So that's my mini rant on the subject of what do I do if I'm currently employed? Now, let's talk about the promotion piece next. So the promotion piece can have different components to it. So one of my clients, this is also an executive coaching client. We got her first VP role a number of years ago. And then last year, we got her first chief product officer role. And in a Series A/B company, she would really like to be at the next level, but 2023 opportunities were going to be Series A and B, and it was great for her first chief product officer role. So what do we need to do now? We have built a strategy for her now that she landed, something that I do with my clients. You don't have to be an executive to do this with me. After you land, then we build out the strategy for what do we need to do in this job, A, to perform well, and B, to build experience we need for what we want to do next, and what we need to do externally to the job to build the network that will open the doors that will get the next job. So oftentimes with promotion, that's a huge piece of the puzzle, is actually planning this out and building out those strategies. So a bunch of different things. If you are in Silicon Valley, and since I am a Silicon Valley veteran, spent almost 25 years there as a tech startup executive, as a management consultant, and working with venture-backed tech startups who collectively have a 64% exit rate, know a thing or two about that world. So in that world, the higher up you are, your relationships are not going to be with leadership at companies, they're going to be with VCs. Something you have to keep in mind. So what we want to be doing, and ideally we're doing this before we're actually really ready to make our next move, is we need to make sure that our LinkedIn profile speaks to what you do now and what you're going to do next. This, generally speaking, is advice for people who are not changing what they do. They're just climbing a ladder of what they do. So what that means is that if you are a product manager and you want to move into leading a team of product managers, you're going to talk about both, that kind of thing. So that means in your headline, that means we're going to talk about language around that. Also, make sure that your current company, you've updated your most impressive accomplishments, and you want to highlight your accomplishments at every job that you've had through the lens of the next job that you want. So if we're going for a promotion, then the things that were important to your employer aren't necessarily the ones you're going to highlight. You're going to highlight the things that are important to your next employer. So if you started out in marketing doing event marketing or digital marketing, and now you're doing product marketing on your way to becoming a CMO, then you're going to talk as much as possible about any way in which you've interacted with product teams. You've been part of go-to-market launches, you've been part of product launches, you've been a part of product releases, product upgrades, anything that you've done. Even if you were just the event marketer that was at the event because they launched at the Consumer Electronics Show and you ran the booth and did all the planning. You're going to talk about the product launch and that in your talk. If you were a digital marketer and you were part of that go-to-market team and you build out the digital marketing strategy to support the launch of the new product, you're going to talk about that. So keep in mind that when you talk about your results, you want to talk about them through a lens of what is important in your next role. And the other thing that you want to do, and this is all assuming, and I left this out, that your experience section is done the way Wendy says it should be done. 12,000 interviews conducted in my career. I've been on LinkedIn since April of 2004. Okay, you can call me old. I don't care. 20 years. I know a thing or two. So trust me. Your experience section is written like a resume. Now, if you've worked for companies that nobody's ever heard of, you can have a line that says what that company does. But then you've got bullets, just like a classic resume. And as I always say, strong active verb, measurable results. Anytime possible, we need numbers. It doesn't matter where you are in your career, whether you are going from your first job to your second job, or whether you're going from your 10th job to your first CEO job, and everybody in between. And I've worked with all of you. So, but what matters now is what you're going to highlight. And I'm going to teach you a cool trick. The cool trick is that the way the human brain works, old school teacher here, know a thing or two about teaching too. The way the human brain works is when you're reading through an actual paper resume or an online resume, of course, because we wouldn't kill any trees for our resumes, but on LinkedIn as well. Obviously, the first bullet is the first one seen because actually not all your bullets, they'll have to click on things to see all the bullets. But when they open up your experience section to read it all, the most impressive to the person that is filling your next job needs to be first. Then, if we've got 5 bullets, the second and last are the next most important. And why? Because if you're looking at the full document, say you're looking at a resume on a computer screen, the first, second, and the last are where the brain will go. The brain is reading the first 2, and then it kind of starts to really skim, and then it's getting ready to read the next job, and so it'll catch that last one, and then it'll read the next job, and it'll read the first 2, and then it will speed through. And depending on how long your career is, they may only get through 2, and that'll actually be what makes their decision. So on your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure it's even more important that first one be the most powerful to the audience that you care about now. The audience you care about now, if you're going for your next promotion or your next job, is the people making hiring decisions for that promotion or that job. Okay. So the other thing that you need to do is you need to make the most of that top section of the profile. And so what does that mean? That means the space behind your profile photo, which of course is going to be a headshot that's reasonably professional, that is on brand for the kind of work you do. Do you work in companies where you wear blue jeans and hoodies? Do you work in companies where you wear business suits and everything in between? Dress appropriately, all those things for the kind of company or organization you're going to work for. But what about the background photo? So the background photo, what you're going to do there is you're going to have an image. If you were an entrepreneur, you'd have an image that's made in Canva, and it's about who your customers are and who you are and the name of your company. But you're not an entrepreneur. You're looking for a job. So you're not going to do that. No, what you're going to do instead is you're going to have an image that somehow reinforces brand. I'll give you a couple examples. Had a client who is a mechanical engineer. She turned 50 the year we were working together. And she is a triathlete. So what did I have her do? Put a picture of her crossing the finish line in a triathlon. Why did we do that? 2 words, age discrimination. Actually, 3 words, age discrimination busted. So I know I've got a lot of people on here today from a hiking group. And so obviously the people in that group, the really smart thing to do is have a picture of your favorite trail or a picture of you on the hiking trail, especially if you are 45 plus. So that's one option. Now I'm going to tell you what I used to do back in the day when I did not earn my living coaching. So when I was like you, somebody who was open to jobs or looking for jobs, what did I have as my background image? A picture of the San Francisco Giants ballpark. Now, why on earth would I do that? Well, I've kept score at every baseball game I have been to since I was 12. In my career, I was frequently the only woman in the room, the only woman at the table. Why did I have a picture of the ballpark? Because people were going to be more comfortable working with me if they knew I was a sports fan. And that gets to the next thing we're going to do, whether we're in a job search situation with LinkedIn. Your about section, you're going to tell stories. You're going to tell stories in very short paragraphs. It's not going to meet the standards of your English class back in school. Nobody's got any time. Nobody's got any attention, even if they don't have ADD. Now, granted, the recruiters are looking at your LinkedIn profile probably on a desktop and not on their iPhone, but still, you're going to explain any transitions in your career in the about section. You're going to highlight what you bring to the table. You're going to highlight your superpowers. If you are a software engineer with EQ and people skills, you're going to highlight that. If you are a charismatic CFO, you're going to highlight that. Now, at the very end, and you're going to have maybe 3 or 4 of these teeny tiny little paragraphs, depending on how long your career has been and any kind of pivots and turns we need to explain. And then at the end, you're going to say, when I'm not doing X, whatever you do for a living, creating great video games, whatever it is, what you're going to do is you are going to add, when I'm not doing X, I enjoy or I do X, Y, or Z. And then the X, Y, and Z are your interests. Why do we talk about interests on LinkedIn? Because sometimes the ways that we connect with people and we build human connection are by our humanness, the things that we're into. So what did I always have and what I still have at the end of mine, even though now my profile is about getting clients and not jobs, but all of my career coaching clients, we do this with every one of you. At the end, when you say, when I'm not creating great video games as a software engineer, I enjoy these 3 things. And you pick 3 things. You pick the things intentionally. So mine was keeping score at baseball games. Then for people who don't give a flying fig about sports, singing classical choral soprano. Okay, that got the music people, probably the artists too. And then if you actually are a human being who doesn't give a hill of beans about sports or the arts, hosting my dinner salons. I used to talk about cooking with butter and bacon. So I was getting at people's stomachs. So there was no way that they didn't feel some connection with me. And in the 12,000 interviews, I did have people who had read that and would bring it up on the call. And that was awesome. So let's refresh what we talked about so far. We talked about the background image on your profile shot. We talked about your profile shot. We talked about the about section. We talked about the experience section. Now let's talk very quickly about the skills section. Only the top 2 skills are going to show. And please, for the love of God, do not connect your skills section to your experience, because most of the words in the skills section are kind of nothing words, and it will take away from your well-crafted results-based language that you have done because you listened to me in your experience section, which mimics what you also have in your resume, which says strong active verb, measurable result. And we highlight the things that are most important to your next job, not necessarily the things that they loved you best for at your old job or your current job. So for the skills section, the top 2 are really all that matter, because nobody's going to click on that. And the search tools in LinkedIn for recruiters will find that stuff anyway. And if you are in Silicon Valley or in tech, in Silicon Country, as I like to refer to it, yes, if you're dealing with venture-backed tech startups, their recruiters are definitely looking for you on LinkedIn because they're not going to get enough volume of applicants. They can't afford to post everything on posting sites. So we do care about your profile for recruiters, particularly in this audience. But even if you do not work in tech, you still do need to care about your LinkedIn profile. And then the volunteer section. That is, once again, a place if you do any kind of volunteering, especially if it's stuff that just is kind of universal. Universal being animals, universal being coaching Little League, things like that. That's really valuable. I would recommend, unless it's a way that you want to screen other people out, that you leave politics and religion out of things, depending on what you do for a living and what part of the country you live in on the topic of religion. Okay, so I left the most important part of your LinkedIn profile to last. And that is the headline right under your name. That is probably the most important space. So when you are a non-entrepreneur, meaning you work for other people and you're considering a job search, or you're in a job search, or you're doing a job search kind of on the down low, whatever it is. Okay, so what goes there? What does not go there is your current title at your current company. You want words that are definitely searchable, that are the titles for the jobs that you're going to get. So, for example, I have a client who could do finance manager or project management office roles. So we're going to put both. Now, we know what would be best for his career and his bank account, but we're going to put both because the economy's wonky and we're smart. We want to get him a job. We need to get him back to breadwinning. So we're going to put both of those there. If you've heard me do sessions on this before and trainings, and I've done these for different groups, you might have heard me talk about the charismatic CFO. So I had a client, and I just want to caveat, we all know software engineers are usually introverts. Well, I don't know how many finance people you know, but I lay you money, none of them were charismatic. This client of mine was. And when we started working together, she had gotten, as is not surprising for a charismatic person, every job in her career through her network. And by the way, without LinkedIn. Can you imagine? That's how strong her human network was. And she was the CFO at a credit union. And her goal for her last job of her career was to be a CFO for a much larger credit union. And we were building her LinkedIn profile, and we decided, because I firmly believe, and I teach all of my clients this, and if you come away with nothing else, come away with this. Know what your superpowers are and make sure every person who looks at your LinkedIn profile and your resume and meets you and interviews you knows what your superpowers are. So we decide that because she has such a unique superpower, we're going to embed the LinkedIn profile with this. That meant that her profile shot behind her was some hot pink, just to kind of give that pop, like charismatic pop. And then what we wrote in the headline was charismatic CFO. And then we wrote in some language that was about what she really wanted for her next role. She wanted to work in a collaborative environment where the leadership team collaborated. And she wanted to be engaged in highly strategic activities, not dotting I's and T's and managing the books. And believe it or not, in some banking institutions, the CFO is not really engaged in the strategic side. And that's what she wanted. So charismatic CFO, and then we made sure the words strategic and collaborative were on that headline. Not very long after we did that, the CEO of a credit union, 1,200 miles from her, found her profile and said, that's exactly what I'm looking for when my current CFO retires in 18 months. She moved 1,200 miles and she retired her husband. That's the power of a good headline. So, if you have any questions, let me see if I have any questions coming in, and we can go ahead and grab those. And then I will send you off on your day. But I know that we've got people on here. I'm giving people a minute to tell me what their questions are. Pop them in the chat so that I can see them. And then we will go from there. And I also got some questions in advance, and I'm pulling them up now. So one person asks, and I talked a little bit about age discrimination, which, depending on what line of work you're in, varies dramatically as far as whether it's actually a thing or not. But if you are in tech in Silicon Valley, it's a thing. Risks to changing job after a certain age. So don't know the whole backstory on that. Here's what I'd say. Changing jobs generically, whether or not you're over a certain age, have risks, especially in an unstable economy. So if you happen to be working for a company where the company is pretty stable and you're not likely to lose your job and your boss isn't likely to change, and so you kind of know what's going on, because bosses changing can be the great disruptor of any good job. If they're not laying off and they're a part of the economy that's not likely to start laying off, then you might want to think twice about making a change right now, because you could very well take a job and then lose it shortly thereafter. I think the only risk about changing jobs after a certain age is you might have to look longer, in part, not just because of the age discrimination everyone likes to talk about and is real in some parts of the country and in some parts of the economy. But the other reason that it takes longer to find a job later in life is usually you're in more senior roles and there are fewer of them. And most companies will not hire you for a more junior role. If that did not answer your question, DM me on LinkedIn. I am linkedin.com/in/Wendy Taylor. No numbers, no nothing. I was the first Wendy Taylor here. And drop me a DM and ask the question so that I can answer that. Another person asked me how to effectively showcase your career without being long-winded. So get the whole long-winded thing. First of all, in our about section, we're writing very short, crisp sentences and like 3-sentence paragraphs. And that's the rule. So that's the way you're going to do that. In the experience section, you're not writing paragraphs. You're writing bullets. Strong active verb, measurable result. And that's how you showcase your career without being long-winded. You have to show results. You need strong active verbs. If grammar wasn't your thing, when I went to school, they didn't really teach grammar a lot. It was the 70s. I don't know. But so basically look up strong active verb if you don't know what that is, but you want to have that active voice, not sound passive. It didn't happen to you. You made it happen. Here is the result. When there isn't a number, as in there isn't a number, not you don't remember the number, then you use strong descriptive adjectives and adverbs, things that are real descriptor language. If you don't remember the number, do your best guess. That's it. As long as it's not wildly off and it's not like, and if it's like 5 years back or more, nobody's going to remember the number better. So that would be the way to avoid being long-winded. And then let's see here. How to build your network. Great question. So what we do to build our network, you connect with, if you're not in a job, do this now. If you're not in a job search, connect with your colleagues, connect with your colleagues from your last jobs. If you are under 35, connect with people you went to college with or grad school with. If you are under 35, connect with former bosses or peers of bosses if you had interaction with them. If you are a parent, connect with the parents that you meet at Little League, at Scouts, at PTA, at your children's preschool. Definitely, kids are the best networkers. If you are in a meetup group that likes to go hiking, connect with the people you know there on LinkedIn. So people with shared interests. If you volunteer, if you play softball, if you, like me, sing in choruses, I sang in the San Francisco City Chorus, I connected with people from there. You never know who's going to know the people that you need to meet in your career. And just because they don't work in your field doesn't mean they don't know people who work in your field. So that's huge. Now, if you want to be really strategic, especially for you promotion seekers, start creating content and figure out who the thought leaders in your space are. Like if you're in product management, the top dogs in talking about product online, and follow them and interact with their posts. That is huge for building your network. Let's see here. Somebody asks, I'm looking for work at different responsibility levels. Is there a way to tailor my profile so as to not appear over or underqualified for different roles? The reality is that you can only have one LinkedIn profile. And generally speaking, based on your actual experience, it's going to be pretty obvious to any hiring manager or recruiter what level you belong at. So to some degree, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And one of the things that will slow your process is if you're applying to jobs that are beneath you. Not beneath you as in you won't lower yourself to those things, but as in you are too senior for that role. That is a huge issue. Also, you're going to actually waste a lot of time and effort if you're applying to things that you don't have any qualifications for or that are above where you are. If you are a 7 years into digital marketing person, don't apply to a CMO job or a VP of marketing job for that matter. So I'm trying to figure out what the game plan here is. But my example of the guy that could go do finance management or project management office roles, we're using both those languages. You can bridge those, and we've embedded his experience section to have both, but we're really highlighting the PMO more than the finance, but the finance stuff is clearly there too. So anyone looking at his profile and his resume can see that. Now, the cool thing with resumes is if you've got two different things, you can have two different resumes, but you got one LinkedIn profile. So pretty much go all in for the thing that you have the best shot at getting, because right now, that's kind of the only jobs people are getting is the stuff that you have the best shot at getting. And so the smart thing to do, if you've got a couple different things, is pick the thing that really is obvious and that you really are qualified to do, but not overqualified to do. And if that doesn't make sense, then you should contact me and ask for, in fact, everyone on this call should contact me and ask for a LinkedIn profile audit. I will do a free audit of your LinkedIn profile for where you're on your job search. And it sounds like we should get on a call and do that. And that is all the questions. And so if you need help with your job search, I want to make sure that I make this offer. Please reach out to me. And you can reach out to me if you're listening on Facebook. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. If you are here through the Meetup group, you can reach out to me there. I do check the LinkedIn and Facebook DMs a little more frequently, but reach out to me. We will get on a call. We will talk about where you are and where you want to be and what you've done and what's not working. And then if I think that I can help you, I will suggest ways that I can help you. And I'm very happy to do that. So please reach out to me on one of the 2 socials or in the Meetup group if you're part of the Meetup group, and we'll get a call scheduled. I'm happy to help. There's all different kinds of ways to work with me, depending on what you need, where you are in your career. But first, let's find out what's going on for you. And we'll do that. And then if I think that we're a good fit, we can talk about what it would be like to work with you. It is not easy right now, but it is doable. And it is faster if you get help. And it is way less stressful than one of my clients last year. He said, I need to fire my wife as my interview coach. It's probably the best thing he ever did for his marriage. So there is that. Okay, it's Friday. So I'm going to end with the thing I always end with on Fridays. Do something you love with the people you love. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day as well. Find me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to find me. But if you're in my Facebook group or on my Facebook profile, that's awesome too. You know where to find me. Give me some emoji love. Share things with your family and friends who are job hunting. Reach out if you want to talk. Pop me a message that says call. We'll make it happen. Bye.